Okay, I hope everyone can hear and see me. Welcome to this virtual Cabinet meeting, our first virtual Cabinet meeting here at Gloucestershire County Council. They're not the first virtual meeting that the County Council has had. Before I start, I just want to put on record my thanks to Joe, Simon and Ryan and all the team in Democratic Services for the work they've done to pull this together, to coordinate with members asking questions and members of the public, and helping us all through the IT. We've had our glitches along the way, but it all looks to be working this morning. So thank you very much to them and all the work they've put into making this possible today. I also want to welcome all the non-cabinet members and members of the public to this meeting. I know you've all been briefed beforehand, but for those viewers watching us on YouTube, members asking questions and supplementaries and members of the public asking questions and supplementaries have been invited into the main Cisco WebEx meeting room for the opportunity to ask their supplementaries. Once they've asked their supplementaries, they will be leaving the WebEx Cisco meeting room and watching the rest of the meeting, if they so wish, on YouTube with everyone else. This is being broadcast live on YouTube today, not only to secure improved access for local residents, but also as a requirement for holding public meetings. That means that we are monitoring our YouTube live feed, and if at any point it goes down, the meeting will need to be suspended until we are back up and live, so that everyone can participate in the meeting. For members on the Cisco WebEx call, most of you will know the drill on this already. However, if you do suddenly find yourselves having some bandwidth issues with regards to this meeting, then it is always advisable to switch off your video camera first. That quite often fixes the problem. So if you are struggling or you're struggling to speak, that's usually the first solution for those who maybe don't have as much bandwidth as others. Okay, having gone through that, I'm just going to go through the agenda that has been circulated, and firstly ask for apologies for absence. Simon, have there been any apologies for today's meeting?
No.
Thank you, Simon, for that. Moving on to agenda item number 2, the minutes of the previous meeting. Can members of the Cabinet confirm that these are a true record? And do Simon, Colin's just joined, can you mute him?
I've done that.
Mark, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Okay, you're fine now.
Excellent. Okay, so we're back to agenda item number 2, minutes of previous meeting. If Cabinet members could indicate these are a true record, as we practiced on Monday. It's easier if you put your hand up in front of your face. So all those in favour, please show. I'm doing a quick virtual tally. That all looks good. Thank you, Harry, on that one. Declarations of interest. Do any members of Cabinet have any pecuniary or personal interest relating to specific matters on agenda? Please notify us now. No, I take it that's a no then. So we're now going to questions at Cabinet meeting. There is 30 minutes allocated for this item, but given this is our first virtual meeting, I'm going to try and get through all of the questions that have been tabled, both the public questions and the members' questions. We will do the public questions first. There are 12 public questions. My understanding is Jan Mallet, who's asked questions 9, 10, 11, has indicated that she has no supplementaries and is not dialing in. I'm aware Christopher Chiswell is on the line, as is Molly Scott-Cato. I'm just checking to see if Ginny Kirkham is on the line. If she is, please indicate. That's no. In that case, we will go to the supplementary questions for 1 and 2. So, Christopher Chiswell, welcome. You've tabled a question. You've had a written answer. So those are both taken as read. So if you could indicate and ask any supplementaries to the questions that you have tabled.
So good morning. Yes, thank you. My name is Chris Chiswell. I'm a Cheltenham resident and a public health doctor by background. My question, my sort of supplementary question relates to answer 2, agenda item 5. I've got a single question on that, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Lovely. So thank you very much, Councillor Moore, for that response. I would note in passing that all the implemented schemes you reference actually focus on pedestrian distancing rather than active transport enablers. But the answer didn't address the first part of my question, which was a curiosity as to what you hope to achieve around preventing retrograde modal shift as people rightly avoid public transport in the context of COVID. So given that this is a council that says that it's committed to a climate emergency, and in the context of the ambitious and published plans of many other local authorities across England, I wanted to hear what measurable ambitions Councillor Moore has for stimulating active transport as a specific mitigation to increase private vehicle use in the context of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you for that one. What I should have also said at the beginning is it might not be possible to provide detailed answers to all questions tabled today as supplementaries, and if so, we will provide written answers to any details we're not able to provide today. But on that note, I will now invite Councillor Nigel Moore to answer that question.
Well, first of all, Dr. Chiswell, thank you very much for your supplementary question. What I can tell you is that already we have been in contact with all of the 6 Gloucestershire district councils, asking them to put forward to us, and this is already taking place, their 3 priorities, cycling and walking schemes, which we will then basically review so we can get them to a point where they're suitable for funding, because we're expecting a further tranche of money from government later this summer. So we are very much on the front foot. We have begun the 4 trial schemes that I think you're aware of. And yesterday, for example, I walked the London Road scheme in Gloucester with Councillor Hilton, and that is going to be a very ambitious scheme, the first phase of our Gloucester to Cheltenham dedicated cycle route. I could go on, but I think I've given you an indication that we are very much looking to this and getting, we believe, on the front foot.
Thank you for that answer, Nigel. And Christopher, if you do have any further correspondence you want to undertake with Nigel, you got his email address, and I'm sure he will be willing and able to communicate with you on the detail as it emerges. So, but thank you very much for joining us this morning and asking your question. Unless we've had Ginny Kirkham join us, we're now going to question 12, which is to Tim Harmon from Molly Scott-Cato.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for your written answer. As you say in that answer, people are not going to be confident to leave lockdown, and we won't be able to revive the economy until people are sure that the virus is under control. And we know that the national track and trace system is failing and is only catching a quarter of new infections, which means people's confidence will be undermined. So my question to you as the Cabinet, and especially to Tim as the health lead, is why isn't Gloucestershire County Council following the example of councils like Ceredigion and Cumbria that have taken control locally of this process of contact tracing to protect public health, to protect the public health of all of us that you're responsible for? And secondly, it's not clear what the relationship is between Public Health England and the local control team that you're setting up. So how does the data get transferred from Public Health England? Do you own that data? Who decides when there is a local outbreak, which then brings your team into play? And how rapidly does the information about new local infections in Gloucestershire reach you from Public Health England?
Well, thank you, Molly, for that question. It's a very important topic, very much, the topic of the day. What I'd like to say in reply to that, first of all, is this is part of an integrated system. We work very closely with Public Health England. We are, in essence, partners in this. I think there might be some misunderstanding coming over from the questions we've had, and I think also a motion that's coming to council next week on the way it works, and we'll be trying to give as much information as we can. I look very carefully at the Ceredigion experience. I think it's worth saying that obviously it is in Wales, where there's a different structure. There's some different rules in place at the moment with regard to this topic. And also Ceredigion has got a fairly small population. I think it's 75, 80,000 compared to Gloucestershire's 350,000, 650,000 with two large urban centres. So there are differences. I think what I would say is if there is, for example, a situation where Public Health England have led on the situation, they would then work with Gloucestershire County Council for us to deal with the local circumstances. Looking ahead, also very happy to work with all the groups on the council, and we will be giving more information to all members in the future.
Thank you, Tim, for that. And I think, as Tim said, that we are due to publish our plan on this in the coming week. So I think once that's out, that might give members of the public and opposition members an opportunity to ask further questions. Okay, Molly, thank you very much for answering your question on that and for joining us this morning as well. Thank you. Right, I'm now going to go to members' questions. Thankfully you've all asked them in nice tidy blocks, so I don't have to jump all over the place. So the first of the three questions are in the name of Councillor Jeremy Hilton. Just bear with me 1 second. Jeremy, these questions will be now answered by Carol Alloway Martin. Jeremy, I invite you to ask your supplementaries. So please indicate your question that you're asking the supplementary on and your supplementary. Thank you.
Oh. Yeah, you can. You can hear me.
We can hear you, Jeremy. Yeah.
Fine. Somebody's unmuted me. That was the reason why I was just checking. And can I thank Nigel Moore for the constructive walkabout we did along London Road yesterday? It was very helpful and deals with what the officers had to say as well. Question 1. Your answer to question 2 suggests that up to 82 persons were possibly transferred into our care homes without being tested for the coronavirus. Certainly that was the information I received in early April. Only those who were previously been infected or those that were showing symptoms were tested. The others were not. Can you tell me why, and this is really to Tim Harman or to the Cabinet Member, why you didn't stop these transfers as soon as a lockdown was announced?
I believe Carol is answering that question.
Hello, Jeremy, thank you very much for your set of questions. Question 2 is the most complex, I think, and the answer has come via Sarah Scott and Tim. So in terms of stopping any transfers of patients at specific times, I think it's worth noting that you've alluded to this issue at the joint scrutiny meeting that we've had, and a paper is coming to, has already been logged as part of the work plan for the next adult and community scrutiny meeting on the 7th of July. So a paper is being presented there which will give as much detail as we have, and will answer the question in more detail. We've also got the HOST meeting on the 14th of July, where there'll be the opportunity to ask the same question of Hospitals Trust and the Clinical Commissioning Group. So at the moment, I'm not able to give you any further detail, but I'm very happy to actually give you a written response for the scrutiny meetings.
Thanks, Carol. Jeremy, do you have a supplementary to 3?
Well, that was to question 1, to do with the calculations based on the 82 persons came from the fact that there was 210 transfers, and for a few weeks there wasn't full testing. Question 2. Do you agree with me that the transfer of people into our care homes without adequate testing for the virus will have contributed to the 268 deaths in our care homes up until the 29th of May?
Carol?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch Councillor Hilton's beginning to his question. It broke up. I wonder if he could repeat it, please.
I'll do so again, Carol. Question 2. Do you agree with me that the transfer of people into our care homes without adequate testing for the virus will have contributed to the 268 deaths in our care homes up until the 29th of May?
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. I managed to catch the whole question there. My view at the moment is that the hospitals, social care and care homes have followed Public Health England's guidelines and at all times, and have responded when it's been updated. And if you recall, in the period February, March, April, there was a significant amount of updating and change going on. In my view, the hospitals have demonstrated good practice, as can be seen by the significant numbers of people who have recovered from the virus under their treatment. This is obviously subject to a retrospective set of studies which the Health Service and indeed Care Service and Public Health England are actually undergoing at the moment. So again, I hope to bring forward some more information at the scrutiny meetings coming forward in July.
Okay, ready for question 3?
Yeah, go ahead, question 3.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Do you agree with me that the failure to protect our care homes in Gloucestershire from the coronavirus is a tragedy? A national and local failure in public health policy. Do you agree with me that we should have a full independent inquiry later this year into what went wrong in this county?
That's a significant set of questions to ask. I think at the moment, my main concern is actually dealing with what we've got. We're still in an emergency situation. And I think the leaders' report about where we were and where we're going answers a lot of your questions. My own view is that Gloucester County Council, with partners, have responded very appropriately and as quickly as we've been able to actually enable care homes to actually be safe places. The amount of work that Gloucester County Council officers has put in terms of PPE, training, visiting, assessments, enabling good practice, not only in the care homes, but within the domiciliary care system, has been exemplary. So while I have some sympathy with what you're saying, I think the need for scrutiny is absolutely crucial. We've already begun that process, and we move into July with 2 scrutiny meetings, by which time things hopefully will have moved on even more positively. But I think the leaders' report gives a fair overview of where we've been and where we're going, and I look to the future with even more optimism. Thank you for your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy, for your questions. I'm moving on to the next block of questions, which is in the name of Colin Hay. I can see Colin on screen. So Colin, if you could please indicate which ones you would like to ask supplementaries. Thank you.
Okay, I've just got a supplementary question to number 5, but I do want to say thank you to Richard for quite reassuring answers, I think, for both of those questions. The one on 5 is actually, additionally, there is some concern that in the general school population, as they leave school, there could be an increase in the number of NEETs. So the slightly additional question is, what's education and the LEP doing to try and mitigate that, given the disruption to the both education and the economy as we move out of the lockdown, so that we keep the NEET numbers down to a minimum?
Rich Boyles.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Hay, for your questions. In answer to your supplement for question 5, what we've been doing with some of our young people is working over the period of COVID, is working a lot with online training. And we've been working with young people to engage them to make sure that they access the online education facilities that are available. And we're paying them a bursary for the £40 a week for actively engaging with the online training and actually upskilling themselves. We're also working with young people and mentoring them more often than we were able to before, purely because the online and virtual access that we have to young people negates travelling and is often quicker. So we're seeing virtually more young people than we were before. And we're working with those young people on opportunities for employment being thrown up from the COVID emergency. And so we're actually looking with employers and the young people and working together to make sure we can identify as many opportunities for jobs for our young people as we come out of the COVID period. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin, for your questions and for Richard for his answers. I'm moving on to the next block of questions, which are in the name of Paul Hodgkinson, and I invite Paul to indicate which ones he wishes to ask supplementaries to. Sorry, have I skipped Rachel? I do apologise.
Yes.
I've got too many windows open at the moment on my desk. Rachel, I do apologise. Your questions 6 and 7 to Nigel Moore.
Am I unmuted? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So for question 6, I have received some information on the West Cheltenham transport improvement, but nothing specifically on the Junction 10 improvement. That was useful, but I'd like to note and ask that the minutes of this meeting show that section A of the environmental mitigation report summarises the greenhouse gas impact of the scheme as a 0.7% increase in emissions with scheme when compared to without scheme results. So will my question, I guess supplementary question for that is, will the Cabinet make funding approval condition on schemes adjustment to make sure the scheme is carbon neutral or even negative, as any other outcome is simply incompatible with the commitments that are to be placed in the Council's strategy, bringing about significant carbon reductions?
Thank you, Rachel. Nigel.
Good morning, Rachel. I think the important thing is that we want to be able to advance this scheme, and during the course of that, we will be able to seek to mitigate that impact that you've described. I don't think we can say right at the outset we can't start until we've got that opportunity. So I see this as a transition during the course of the scheme, and you've raised a very good point, and a point we recognise.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. Can I ask a supplementary for the next question?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So, response to COVID-19 really has shown us two things. Firstly, there's a probability that future working and travel patterns will significantly and permanently change with greater work from home. And secondly, when we face up to the reality of an existential risk, we can make the changes needed to our lives to address it. And climate breakdown continues to be the greatest existential risk we face. So will the Cabinet commit to carrying out a review of the costs and benefits of this scheme, of these two schemes, based on reasonable scenarios about likely future travel demand before committing millions of pounds of taxpayers' money to a scheme that is based on inflexible and backward-looking assumptions?
Rachel, thank you very much for your question. I think I should say at the outset, we see the transition to ultra-low electric vehicles, emission vehicles, as being a really important way to decarbonise our transport system. And while we're optimistic about the opportunities COVID-19 gives for greater walking and cycling, it's simply too early to predict a long-term result. And I would flag up to you something which is really worrying me, which is that the impact on public transport could push more people to drive. So this is why decarbonising our transport system, pushing forward with our electric vehicle charging strategy, these are all key points. I don't think you can take from what's been happening now quite the massive change that you're suggesting.
Thank you for Nigel for that, and thank you, Rachel, for asking your questions this morning. I'm moving on to the next block of questions, which is in the name of Councillor Paul Hodgkinson. And Paul, I invite you to indicate which questions you wish to ask as supplementary.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I want to ask a supplementary on each of my questions, please. So starting with question 8, which is to you, Mark. In your answer, this was to my question around what lessons have been learned in this crisis. In your answer, you've said the time for learning lessons is not now, but when we've resolved the emergency. So I suppose my point and question here is that given the fact that across the UK, 50,000 lives have been lost, almost 600 have lost their lives in Gloucestershire, surely if lessons aren't learnt now and action taken to address anything that's gone wrong, further lives could be lost. We know that the modelling is there for potential second and third wave of this dreadful virus. So looking back, what opportunities do you feel were missed by this council? What would you have done differently in order to save more lives and, crucially, to save lives going forward?
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for your supplementary. As you rightly point out, there is obviously a risk that we will see a second wave of infection. It's something that the government is very alert to and that we remain very alert to in Gloucestershire. I think it's really important to put on record my thanks and the thanks of all councillors for the tremendous work that's been done under huge pressure by all departments within Gloucestershire County Council, but especially those working in frontline services and adults and children's, and especially those in public health as well, have done so much over the last 2 months under a huge amount of pressure. But as you quite rightly point out, this crisis is not over, and we need to make sure that our officers continue to be focused on supporting our communities and the infrastructure necessary to give communities the confidence to return to some form of normality. And I know certainly from the work that Sarah Scott and her team are doing now, and the extra resources we're bringing into play within that team, there is a tremendous amount of work on the outbreak management plan that we will hopefully be publishing later on in the week. So that remains our focus at this particular time. There will be an opportunity later on to reflect back on all that has happened and to learn those lessons that we need to learn to make sure that we're better prepared in any future outbreak. But I think the focus today of all officers on Gloucestershire County Council and those on the front line should be to continue to support the ongoing pandemic crisis and the outbreak management plan in particular, which is so vital for our county going forward. Paul, your next question, please.
Thank you. Yeah, question 9, again to you, Mark. I suppose the point of my question here originally was that this is the first public meeting that there's been of the Cabinet for the last 3 months. So I was hoping that there would be some reference in the Cabinet papers to what has happened in Gloucestershire. In other words, that we know that 560 people have very sadly lost their lives. We also know that many more fell ill and recovered. So perhaps you could join me now in just referencing that and acknowledging the profound impact which this crisis has had on the residents of Gloucestershire, particularly those who've lost loved ones, not only family members, but also friends and neighbours. So perhaps you would join me in just referencing that now, please.
Absolutely, Paul. And I think we all reflect with great sadness the loss of any life, and certainly the loss of life that has been through this COVID-19 pandemic. And you know as well as I that councillors have been updated on a daily basis with regards to the ongoing outbreak, and it is always with great sadness that we see that another member of our community has sadly lost the fight with COVID-19. But I think it's also really important to reflect, as Carol did in the answer she gave earlier on, the tremendous efforts that have gone on, especially with our NHS workers in hospitals and with our social care workers across the county. The number of lives that have been saved as well. And I think that needs to be noted, and I'm sure you would join me in noting the tremendous efforts that have been made by our dedicated frontline teams that have not only saved so many lives, but have done so much to protect our communities. Your next question, please.
Thank you. Yes, and of course I acknowledge all the efforts of the front line, absolutely. So question 11 to Patrick Molyneux. Sorry, question 10 that was to Patrick Molyneux. So Patrick, in your answer, you've said that parents are also encouraged to transport their own children with reimbursement from the council. Could you just confirm how much parents are being reimbursed? Is it just the initial cost of transport? Or are you covering petrol, wear and tear, etc.?
I don't have that detail, Paul, I'm afraid. I don't know if Charlotte could expand on that in terms of precisely what they can claim back. Charlotte?
Patrick, if you don't have the answer, you're going to have to provide a written response.
I'll provide you with a written response, Paul.
Okay, so question 11, you've talked about the fact there's not been a particular increase in parents driving their children to school. So what particular steps have you taken, therefore, to encourage parents and children to change habits and to increase those parents and children who are walking and cycling to school?
I mean, our main priority has been encouraging parents and children to actually send their children back to school where they are in the certain year groups. I think throughout everything we do, this whole pandemic has thrown a number of things that we need to look at, and certainly that sort of whole school transport is going to be a big issue, certainly coming into the autumn when we expand the school offer much wider, as is potentially planned at the moment. We just need to make sure that the schools are safe environments, and that includes how they get to school. That's our key priority at the moment. We need to encourage and give the parents the confidence that they can send their children to school, and that includes the manner that they get to school. And certainly as we go forward, we'll be pushing a much more greener, sustainable way. And I think lots of schools are pushing this already, and we're giving them all the support we can to do that.
Okay, thank you. Question 12 is on the same subject matter. You've talked about school transport methods there. Can you tell me what the rural-urban split is on the proportion of children who have returned to school in Gloucestershire?
Again, I'm going to have to give you a written response to that. We are getting statistics back from the DFE on numbers of children going back into school. And in fact, on Monday, we had 9,400 across the county. But I'll have to come back to you with the actual split in terms of urban, rural areas.
Okay, thank you. Question 13 is to Tim Harman. Tim, in your answer regarding the Cheltenham races, you've said, and I quote, "It is not my place to paraphrase or summarise the advice of Public Health England." Tim, given the fact that you are the cabinet member responsible for public health in Gloucestershire, I asked for your understanding of government advice at the time, and also any specific encouragement that you may know of that came from ministers to encourage the festival to go ahead. So I'm asking you again here, what is your understanding of those two things, please?
I think it's been widely reported in the media that the position for the lockdown was announced by the Prime Minister on the 23rd of March. The races had taken place the week before. And when they did take place, it was in line with the recommended procedures at the time, when there was no ban on mass gatherings. To have gone beyond the role that the public health team provided, which is providing advice, would have been beyond the remit of this council, in exactly the same way as it would have been beyond the remit of, let's say, Liverpool City Council with regard to the Champions League match that took place there, or indeed with the role that Cheltenham Borough Council would have played in providing facilities to the town of Cheltenham and to the racecourse.
Next question, please.
Okay, so question 14. In question 14, when I asked about any conversations you'd had with the Jockey Club, etc., the government regarding Cheltenham races, you simply said, I had no such conversations. So my question to you is, why not? Surely in your role as Cabinet Member for Public Health for Gloucestershire, and given the mounting backdrop at the time of deaths in Italy and Spain in particular, and France, you should have voiced concerns. And therefore, why did you choose to abstain on that matter?
Because we followed the position that was in place at the time on the national list. If I had done that, it would have been effectively beyond my remit as well as beyond the remit of this local authority.
Okay, so question 15, I asked you whether you believe personally that the Cheltenham Festival should or shouldn't have gone ahead. You haven't answered the question, so I'm simply going to ask you now, as the person responsible for public health on this council, do you believe the Cheltenham Festival should or should not have gone ahead? Yes or no?
My personal views are not really relevant here. I mean, quite clearly, as I've already stated, we followed the guidance at the time, and quite clearly, you would have to say that I think that the role that the public health team played in supporting that at the time, in line with those policies, was correct, and we stuck to the rules at that time.
Okay.
Question, please.
So final question on 17 to Vernon. Good morning, Vernon. So I've asked about pothole filling in the last 3 months, 1st of March to 31st of May, and you've stated that the figures were for 7,047 potholes were repaired in that period by Gloucestershire County Council. Now, in that period, a number of other councils did extremely well with pothole filling. So Stoke Council, for instance, trebled the number of potholes they filled. The Telegraph reported just last week that Derbyshire increased their pothole filling compared to previous years by 18%. So given the fact that this year there were 2,200 less potholes than last year filled, 13,000 less than 2018, and 8,800 less than 2017 in this council, 2 of those winters being mild winters. When the roads were so quiet, why did you miss the opportunity to fix the roads when other councils clearly did?
Yeah, Paul, thank you for your supplementary. I think, first of all, I can't answer what other councils are doing in their particular areas. What I can say about Gloucestershire is that we have to remember in these unprecedented times, the disruption to our supply chain here was difficult, self-isolation with the workforce, but I am very proud of what they were able to continue to do to make sure the network was safe. What I would add to that, though, is we looked at focusing on the resurfacing, the £150 million resurfacing programme, which is an unprecedented amount of finance that we're putting into Gloucestershire's roads. And you would agree with me that the way to eradicate and reduce potholes is major resurfacing. So what supply chain disruption we were able to carry on and continue over the last 3 months, we focused on that major resurfacing programme of 150 million. And I would add, for example, there's Cole Avenue that we've just started on the 16th of June on the A38, 2,000 square metres of resurfacing, going from Bristol Road Junction, I think, right through to Podsmead Junction. I think the true way to move forward on that is that major resurfacing. And we were able in Gloucestershire to carry on that programme of that 150 million, which I am, and I would like to put on record, very proud of all our staff through the unprecedented circumstances we've been in over the last 3 months. Very proud of what they've done, what they've able to achieve with, as I say, that supply chain disruption that we had in Gloucestershire, which I'm thankful that we are improving and moving forward and keeping our programme moving forward over the coming months.
Thank you. Paul, your next question, please.
Yeah, thank you. So if I move to question 18, my final question, which is to you, Mark. So you've talked, you've talked about pop-up cycle lanes. I raised that, sorry, my question, and you sort of talked about what you expect to do. So if we just remember back to May, the government obviously instructed councils to act quickly to seize the moment and put in place pop-up cycle lanes, etc. Since that announcement, there's not been one single temporary pop-up cycle lane installed in Gloucestershire. So given the fact that the moment is already passing with traffic levels up to 70% of their previous level now, I know from as a cyclist it's getting dangerous again. Why is it that the council cannot act quickly to get these things in place?
Thank you, Paul, for your supplementary. As I think I explained when we first had that Q&A session on the 7th of May, our number one priority at the time was supporting retail space in their preparations for reopening. I know you as the local member would appreciate the work that we did with Bolton in making sure that that scheme was up and running, and we worked very closely with Cheltenham Borough Council on the Bath Road scheme as well, which I know has been well received by local members there as well. The second point, which I think is really, really important, we were very much of the view that the County Council couldn't act alone, that we needed to consult with district colleagues and for them to bring forward their ideas with regards to their prioritisation. And Nigel made reference to that as well. And my one regret, I guess, in all of that is that despite the enthusiasm that was shown by district colleagues to bring forward ideas, much of the delay has actually been caused by them not forwarding their proposals. In fact, I have to say this, Paul, your own Cotswold District Council didn't get their proposals to us until late last week. So it is regrettable that we've not been able to bring those schemes as quickly as forward as we possibly want to, but we are working in partnership with districts, and sadly there would appear to have been some delays at their end that's meant that we've not been able to progress this as quickly as we possibly could. Thank you, Paul, for your questions. I'm moving on to Ian. I can see Ian on the screen, so Ian is with us. Ian, please indicate which questions you would like to ask supplementaries.
Thank you, Mark. I have no supplementary to question 19, so I'd like to move on swiftly to question 20, where I was comparing the successfully devolved German approach to COVID-19 tracing to England's. Such a devolved approach, as we've subsequently heard, has also been successfully adopted in Wales in Ceredigion. Meanwhile, here, positive cases, including in Gloucestershire schools, are dealt with by Public Health England. They do the contact tracing. The professional, experienced and competent Gloucestershire County Council Public Health team apparently has no central role or leading role to play. So my question is, will the Gloucestershire outbreak management plan, promised for the end of June, change, I would argue, correct this centralised approach?
Thank you, Ian, for that question. I think I don't want to be sort of repeating what we said earlier in the meeting when we had the public question from Molly, but we are getting the outbreak plan published very shortly. From where I sit, I can absolutely assure you that the public health team has been massively involved, is playing a really important role in this scheme. We'll be coming forward with the details, and as I said earlier, we'd be delighted to work with all members to give information, to answer questions. This really is an important topic, and I hope that when you see the full plan, that you'll be reassured with what we are aiming to do.
Thank you. My supplementary to question 21 is this. It's said that the 100% COVID-19 testing of staff and residents of care homes was an offer rather than a target. We could debate this, but my question is now, will GCC be encouraging all care homes to take up that offer? Regular testing of care home staff and residents is the way to defeat the curse of COVID-19 amongst vulnerable people in care homes, where it has been responsible for virtually half of all COVID-19 deaths in our county.
This is a good question. I think if I can refer to the first paragraph of my written answer, this was not, it wasn't mandatory, but we are very keen to work with care homes, understanding the very important situation. And yes, I'm sure we'll be doing all we can to encourage them. And we will work with them in the future.
My supplementary to question 22, Tim, is you say the testing strategy for care homes has been nationally recommended and led. The World Health Authority recommendation is test, test, test for all staff and residents to receive weekly tests on a continuing basis. My question is, will you now encourage the care homes in Gloucestershire to follow this international advice?
And we'll work very closely with them. We actually can only use the data that we have available, I have to say that, but yes, it's a very important area. We would continue to work with them. And I think I'm right in saying actually that there's a paper coming to the next scrutiny committee on the whole subject of care homes, and that would be a very good place to have a more detailed debate. I'm sure Margaret will be able to give you some very helpful replies.
Thank you, Tim. I have no supplementary to question 23. And moving on to the block of questions 24 to 30, I'd like to ask just one supplementary on that, if I may. And just before I do so, the reason I ask these questions has nothing to do with the London Road scheme per se. My intention was and is to clarify matters of process. So my question is, the Secretary of State for Transport, Grant Shapps, has encouraged local authorities to smash through the obstacles, legal, financial and time-wise, which the antiquated and red tape-bound standard TRO system presents to taking radical action to encourage cycling and walking. So are we, right now, using the tools of emergency or temporary TROs encouraged by the government to quickly deliver the positive proposals presented by the districts and also by individual councillors too? Use the tools. This chance to help realise modal shifts may never come again, or at least not for a long time.
Ian, questions, please.
Okay, I've given you a question. Will you use it?
Thank you. Thank you. Nigel.
Ian, I'll take your question, and thank you very much for putting the points, give me an opportunity to expand on the points that Mark's already made. I'll flag obviously the delays we experienced with regard to the district council submissions. That's not been helpful, but we are where we are. I think Ian, there's a lot of hype over this. The reality is that the period for consultation on the TROs is reduced from 21 days to 7 days, and there is some modification of the consultation procedures. But Ian, as London Road has demonstrated in terms of progressing that scheme, this doesn't in any way negate the real issues, the real practical issues of ensuring that the changes we make are safe. And that is why I say there's a lot of hype, but we do now have a range of schemes across the county which officers are progressing. I will make the point actually on the London Road scheme, where Councillor Hilton and I walked yesterday. We have appointed a dedicated officer with experience of implementing cycle schemes in London and Bristol, and I had a long conversation with him yesterday. He's just the kind of officer we need with real good track record. So I think we will see some faster progression. Now we've got these schemes in front of us and we can go forward.
I have no further supplementaries, Mark.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you for joining this morning with your questions. I've got two final questions in the name of Ben Evans. Is Ben on the line?
He's not showing, Mark. We've just got one caller on the line. I don't think that's Ben Evans, so you're not there, Ben, are you?
No. Okay. Do we know who call-in user 3 is?
It may be an officer. It may be a finance officer that was struggling to get on before.
It might be Paul Blacker. Okay.
Leader, it's Wayne Bocock. I'm also on the line, struggling with IT, so it could be me.
Okay. It is you because you're not on the list. Okay. Can I thank all members of the public and council members for asking their questions this morning. and managing through the technology. I think that was a useful exercise, and certainly I allowed every question to be asked. I'm moving back, therefore, to the paper that we have in front of us this morning, and the first of those agenda items is the non-key decisions, which is the Gloucestershire County Council COVID-19 response and approach to recovery. The paper is in my name, but I'm going to invite officers to make a presentation this morning to Cabinet members to tell us what's been going on. So Simon brings forward the correct set of slides and not once for later on in the agenda. I will invite the Chief Exec of the County Council, Pete Bungard, to start, and that will be followed by Steve Mawson.
Thank you, Mark. I just want to share what I think is quite an amazing story of adaptation, new services, appropriate reductions, but also increases in our response. And it's probably very good proof that our business continuity plans were robust. So what did we do? The most important thing we did, which is frankly our day job, was to protect the most vulnerable people in Gloucestershire. We changed our adult response from a 5-day-a-week service to a 7-day-a-week, 8 o'clock till 8 o'clock. We paid extra money to care homes to help them through a very difficult period. We delivered 1.7 million items of PPE equipment to care settings. We've paid an uplift to care providers. We've paid out a £7 million infection control fund. We've supported 346 homeless people in Gloucestershire over the period of the lockdown. We've contacted over 10,000 people on the shielded list. We set up a community help hub. We put money into districts to help them with capacity through the voluntary sector to respond. We've trained the trainers to support care home infection control. Our children's services are actually performing stronger than pre-COVID in terms of their contact performance, and are actually now the best in the Southwest at that. We've managed to create virtual child protection conferences, care reviews, fostering and adoption meetings, and court proceedings. Our fire service has driven ambulances, taken out tests to care homes, helped move COVID casualties from the hospital to the mortuary, delivered food, become the storage and distribution network of the PPE equipment. Trading standards have really focused on scams of vulnerable people during this time. As already has been said, we've managed to progress our highways resurfacing very well during a period of less traffic. We provided free bus travel for the NHS, free parking for hospital workers. We've started delivering the highway adaptations. We've established a digital library service at a level we've never seen before. We've supported school reopenings with a huge effort, which I actually think changed the nature of the conversation in Gloucestershire. We provided some 1,000 PPE response packs for the schools, which just gave them the indication of the support that was available. Public Health has run the gold response system, has led on testing, has upped the ante on mental health and domestic abuse response, obviously did the work with rough sleepers, has been working on track and trace, which we are doing now, as well as developing the outbreak management plan. And I'd also turn to our support services who've adapted our buildings, have become experts at buying PPE without being ripped off. have run a fast track of social care performance for care homes under the Proud to Care banner. We've managed spending of an extra £3.4 million a month. We were able to get over 2,000 of our staff working remotely within a matter of days. Comms have kept, I think, the council briefed, as well as the public in Gloucestershire, and DSU have invented the virtual council, which we're experiencing today. So I'm actually really proud of the way the council has responded to the outbreak to date. I'm going to ask Steve to take us through the remaining stages, which are restart, recovery, and reinvent. So over to Steve.
Steve. Steve Mawson. We seem to have lost Steve Mawson. He's not here. Steve, you're on mute.
I'm there. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Thank you. So in terms of the position, as Pete said, the council has been spending a lot of money. We have been spending an extra £3.4 million per month. We've tried to do some calculations and some estimates to the year end, and we think that could increase to 53 million. Obviously, that does depend on whether we get further spikes. It depends on whether we are going to be collecting more income. It depends on whether we're going to be returning to work. A lot of that spend has been on adult social care. We've been spending a lot of money, increased fees that we've been paying to care homes, and PPE in many, many different settings. So far, the government have allocated an additional 27.7 million pounds, as well as additional monies on infection control that has gone to direct to care providers. And we now have 2.2 million from the national 300 million for test and trace. I feel confident we are working with government on their regular returns, what we call the Delta return to government, and we are keeping them regularly updated on the council's financial position. In conversations I've been having with government, they are listening. They are listening with all the different range of local authorities, particularly those district authorities and unitary authorities that are also having difficulty collecting council tax income. So I do think they are listening, and hopefully there will be more clarification and more money coming down the line in the not too distant future. Just moving on to reinstatement then, Simon, if you don't mind moving the slide on. Okay, so what we tried to do here exemplify some of the services that have already come back online, and you can see in stage 1 and stage 2 some of the services that we started to get back online. So just picking up the latest stuff in terms of the birth registrations, notice of marriage. We are working through all our buildings, and we've done, by the end of this week, we'll have done about 60 of our buildings. We are starting to work through what that means for the rest of them in terms of the remaining buildings that we've got available, making sure that clear signage is in all those buildings. We've had excellent compliments come back from staff in terms of making it much more understandable what their role is. But we are still in emergency procedures. We have still got a lot of staff, approximately 54% of staff working at home. In terms of other reinstatements that we're looking through, you can see those in other stages, just some exemplifications, working through what we need to do on day centres, looking at our phased reintroduction of on-street parking, reinforcement, and particularly making sure we tackle that from a safety perspective. You can also see later stages there, and we've split up into a stage 3B and 3C, including hopefully trying to get back to libraries, phased reopenings of libraries at later stages. The detail of those phased reopenings is in Appendix C of the report, so I don't propose to go through in detail. Simon, if you could just move forward onto the next slide, thanks. So we've said that we are doing we've tried to realign our reinstatement in line with the government reinstatement. However, we do see from time to time government changing the advice, such as weddings and birth registrations, which came forward quite quickly, and we were having to respond to that in a very rapid state. So we are working through the backlog on birth registrations, and we are starting to look at when we can start to take weddings. But obviously it does take a 28-day notification on weddings at the moment. Next slide, Simon. One of the key challenges, of course, is the economic response, and the county council are trying to work with all our partners, including all the other councils and the LEP, and we have had a discussion at the Economic Growth Committee in the last couple of weeks to start to highlight what we can do on that. We are making sure that we aren't just being seen as a provider of of money, and working through what we can understand of all the different sectors across the county. Again, I think that's important that the county council are in the middle of those discussions, whilst at the same time not leading every element of that discussion. So I think that's it in terms of presentation. I don't think there's any more slides that I wanted to go through. Happy to answer any further questions on that, Leader.
Thank you to Pete and to Steve for their presentations and for the report that is being circulated. I'm sure members across the authority will join with me, as I said right at the beginning of this meeting, in thanking all of our staff for the tremendous efforts that they've undertaken over the period of the pandemic and the responses that they've made in supporting our communities. A huge amount to change in a very short period of time, and I've seen on a daily basis the huge number of hours and the dedication that's been put in by our leaders and by our frontline staff. I think we're all extremely grateful for the response that has been delivered. I think there is, as Pete and Steve point out, a lot to be proud of that we have achieved as a local authority from our support for the NHS, and that came in many guises through making sure that we had that bus transfer link in place from day one and freeing up parking space around hospitals, through the complete redesign of adult social care to support the transfer of patients out of the hospital and maintain, and it's really important because I think people forget this, to maintain that capacity within our NHS at all times throughout this pandemic. I think it was a celebratory moment for all of us, not just the NHS, when we saw earlier on in the week the final COVID-19 patient leaving the ICU unit, and a real milestone to celebrate the huge amount of work that's been done there. I think it's also, we can take a lot to be proud of in the support that we've delivered in communities, and that cross-agency support that we've delivered within the communities. I was very keen from day one, as were a number of other district council leaders, that we should act as one throughout this crisis, that this was a moment to come together and work together. And through the work we did in establishing the Help Hub, which saw well over 3,000 offers of help from individuals and communities, and acted as that key portal for people to get the support that they needed, especially for those who were in self-isolation. But also, I think most proud of all was the work we did on homelessness, and the collective responsibility that we took from day one on getting people off the streets and into secure accommodation and providing that wraparound service. And, you know, the county council put its hand in its own pocket and paid a large proportion of the accommodation bill there. Not our responsibility, but it was our public duty. And I think we rightly did that and took on that opportunity when it arose. And I think Pete highlighted the support that we've given to schools. Not only in making that initial support package of emergency PPE to every single school in the county to give them that confidence in reopening, but the continued work we're doing on home to school transport, looking towards reopening in September, looking at providing face masks as an opportunity for those using buses to get to school. All these things are about us leading for our communities and providing them with the confidence to get back to school and to return to normal. I could go on and on, but there is a huge amount that we all should be rightly proud of the way we've responded. I think the one thing that we've always done throughout this crisis, we've acted with the right intentions for our communities, regardless of the cost, and to make sure that the communities had what they needed to be able to continue. Reflecting on to the future, this is a really key important piece of work that we will come back to, I think, time and time again. And it is right and proper that we're working closely with our district colleagues and with the LEP and with Western Gateway to develop our recovery plans. It is quite clear that the UK economy is going to take a knock, and we need to be making sure that we lead on delivering for Gloucestershire the recovery in our economy, getting people back into work, getting our businesses back up and running, getting our industries back up and running, getting our infrastructure back up and running, so that we can protect those jobs for hard-working families right across the county. I think it's really important that we make sure that we land all of that major infrastructure, some of which we're talking about today, which is going to be vital in helping support the building new homes and the bringing forward of new employment opportunities. And we need to make sure we land that investment, and that's really, really key. But there will be more work that we need to be doing. We need to be making sure that we help those who get back into work who might have lost their job due to this pandemic. And we will be bringing forward proposals, I'm sure, as we go forward to support people, especially young people who might be more adversely affected by the changes in the workplace, to make sure that we get them back into work. We did it back in 2008 during the banking crisis, and I'm sure we will go do it again in this response as well. But I'm sure Cabinet colleagues will join me in thanking all officers for the tremendous work they've done. But the challenge isn't over. There's still a huge amount we still need to do. And I'm sure that our officers will remain dedicated to delivering for our communities and for our county. Okay, I'm going to open it up to wider debate. Anyone got any additional thoughts that they wish to add at this point? Please indicate. Best way is to put your hand up like that so I can see it.
Tim, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. I mean, I just comment really, I don't want to repeat what's been said, but I think it's been so impressive working alongside the officer team and indeed Cabinet colleagues and indeed other members throughout this period, both in the County Council and at Cheltenham Borough Council, which I'm also a member of. I think everybody's risen to the occasion, and I think the staff has shown incredible flexibility. I think the achievement in shifting so many people to home working in a fairly short place of time has been astonishing, and I think there are things going ahead, looking forward, that will enable us to change the way we worked in many ways. But basically, just a big thank you, and just from a personal point of view, I think one of the great privileges of my time in politics has been to work with Sarah Scott and the public health team at this time.
And Richard.
Thank you very much, Leader. Yeah, what I'd like to start to say from children's point of view is we've been running, as you know, a children's bronze meeting, first 5 times a week and then 3 times a week now. Every single matter and problem that's thrown up is addressed straight away. There's good contact through all of the management structure down to the front line, and the resilience of that front line and the way that children's services staff have reacted so positively to making sure that children are kept safe during this period. And something you mentioned earlier on about how our visits and the situation that we find ourselves in now is being the best in the Southwest with regard to contact with children, and for vulnerable young children being present in schools just shows and is testament to all the hard-working children. I'd like to really thank the whole children's team for all the work they've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Carol.
Thank you, Mark. I just wanted to add something about the way that the staff not only have been resilient to respond to what we've asked them to do, but have been creative and have supported each other. Just, the separation from working at home, but using the IT they've all risen to the challenge and actually been incredibly creative to resolve some of the issues that we've had in adult social care. And just the sheer ability of the commissioning team to actually work out how to manage a scenario and then change the scenario at very short notice. I think our staff are absolutely brilliant. And I think the way that they've worked in this period of real emergency shows that we can actually move on and actually use some of their really good ideas and strategies that we've had to put in place to be good for the future. So the notion of resilience is in the people, and we must remember that we've had staff that have been particularly unwell during this period, and we've actually lost a colleague. So in all of this movement forward, I think we have to acknowledge that it has been at a cost, a national cost, and I just want to actually acknowledge all those people who've been unwell, all those people who've been affected, and all those people who have died. Thank you.
I've got Nigel, Lyndon, and then Dave.
Thank you, Mark. Mark, you've drawn attention in your introduction to the importance of getting our infrastructure improvements in place over the next few months. The fact that we're already in a position to bring papers forward today on some really key decisions, I think is tribute to the way in which both members and officers before COVID-19 sprang on us, engaged not only with the LEP and with Western Gateway, but other bodies, so that we are in a really good position to move forward on these schemes. But that's only because of the large amount of work that was done over the last 2 years. And I really want to take the opportunity to thank all the officers involved with our planning and infrastructure for the kind of dedication they've shown.
Thank you. Next, I've got Lyndon.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Yes, I want to endorse absolutely what you said. I think this has been a massive team effort, and I think the whole organisation needs to be rightly proud of what you've achieved. And I think the senior management team has been leadership has been inspirational. And Pete is right to say that he's proud that the organisation has delivered in exceptional circumstances. The one thing, of course, or many things to do, but one thing, of course, we need to do now is to learn from the last few weeks, and in particular, learn how we can change things we do going forward. That'll be a key piece of work, and it's one that I think all of us will wish to engage in the next few weeks and months.
Thanks, Lyndon. Can I move to Dave next?
Okay. You're live, Dave.
Thank you very much. You obviously couldn't find me on the list. Clearly, I want to endorse everything that my cabinet colleagues have said in advance of what I'm now going to say, because this authority has moved heaven and earth to support a really, really challenging time for the people within Gloucestershire and beyond. But I do want just to, obviously, as I should, major on the efforts of those within the Community Safety Directorate. When you see what firefighters, when you see what staff in trading standards, in protection teams, what they've done in this time has been absolutely immense. Firefighters are used to running towards something that they can see and something they can deal with, very often a challenging situation, a life-threatening situation. We've got a life-threatening situation, we've had it over the last 3 months, that people can't see. And what I want to just finish up with is Wayne and I had to produce a list for the Fire Minister of what firefighters in particular had done over and above their inverted commas normal day job. And when you look at that list, it's absolutely amazing. And I've had responses from equivalent cabinet members to me across the country, and they've said Gloucestershire County Council is so lucky to have a County Council Fire and Rescue Service. Long may that continue. Thank you, Leader.
Well said, Dave. Well said. Anyone else want to contribute on this one? Pat?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Yeah, I'd just like to also put in my thanks to the education team and Charlotte. I think they have done an incredible job in very difficult times. They work very closely with the schools, but I'd also like to thank the schools and the teachers, because they really are at the front line. They have helped us at the economy keep going. They've helped key workers, the NHS, to keep going. And they've done an incredible job in making sure that the schools are capable of bringing children back safely. And I think that's been borne out by the fact that our attendance figures are above the national average. And I think it's all worked incredibly well. As I said, we've had around 9,500 children in the various year groups back in school on Monday just gone. So I think that's an incredible job done. I think on the economy, I think that's yet to bear out. I think there are going to be huge challenges, but also huge opportunities going forward. And I think this whole pandemic has probably moved everybody on in terms of the way they work significantly. And I think working out precisely how that works and what that looks like will be a challenge. But I think there are huge opportunities to make sure that we do lead on a green agenda and a more sustainable way of the economy running, and get Gloucestershire back on its feet.
Thank you, Patrick. I can't see any other hands indicating wishing to come in. I hope I haven't missed anyone. It's slightly more difficult to spot a virtual hand than it is to spot a real one sat around the table, so I'm going to have to pay a little bit more attention. But if that's the case, I'm going to move to the recommendations, which are on page 9 of the report. And the recommendations are there. There's 3 in total. I will take them in block. All those in favour, please show.
That's carried, Mark.
That is carried. Just a note to the 1 or 2 cabinet members, if you've got your video switched off, you can't vote. So obviously I can't see you. So just a small tip there. Okay, I'm moving on to the next agenda item. Bear with me. So that's agenda item 6. Update to the council strategy, looking to the future, which is in your report. So this is a very short paper, as you can see. If I can find it, bear with me a second. Right, it's on the other screen. This is a very short paper that we're bringing forward that reflects on the council strategy looking to the future. Since we've taken the decision at full council on climate change and climate challenge. You'll see on page 46 of your packs that we're making a number of decisions and changes to the council strategy, which are outlined on A, B and C, to really incorporate what council and cabinet have already agreed with regards to climate change. So I believe this now has to go back to council for decision, but has anyone got any questions or comments? Nigel. Nigel, you're on mute.
Let me unmute Nigel, I've got him.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Leader. I'm really pleased to see this now at the centre stage of our council strategy, and the suggesting wording I'm very happy with. It makes it very clear what our ambitions are and how we're working towards them. So really, I just want to express that appreciation, Mark, for what this paper is doing.
Any more for that one? No, in that case, I can't see any hands go up. In that case, I'll move to the recommendations, which are on page 45. That the Cabinet recommends the updated council strategy for adoption by County Council. All those in favour, please show. That is carried.
Mark, it's probably worth saying that that will go to council next week.
Okay, thank you, Simon, on that one. I'm moving back to the agenda. Bear with me a second. The next item on the agenda is key decisions. The first of which is the Revenue and Capital Expenditure Outturn Report 2019-2020, and I hand over to Linda to present that to Cabinet.
Thank you. The final year-end position at the end of 19/20 was an underspend of 326,000 on a net revenue budget of nearly 430 million. That underspend will be transferred to general reserves, and in doing so, we'll bring our general reserves fractionally above the 4% target level again. This final position is an indication of the robust financial management that took place during that year. We all recognise the challenges that were in place, in particular the overspend on children's services, which is detailed in the report. Expenditure relating to COVID-19 was only incurred in the last part of March, so only a total of £129,000 is identified in the summary within this report. Clearly, the financial impact of COVID during the current year is being incredibly closely monitored, and as mentioned before, we are submitting monthly delta returns to government. The overall position does obviously mask a number of significant variances, which we have spoken about throughout the past year and which are, again, fully detailed within the report. But they continue to relate essentially to the care of the most vulnerable in our society, that's the children and adults. Those demand-led budgets continue to be subject to significant volatility due to changes in client numbers. But again, I know we have in place a robust monitoring process. Our revenue savings programme for last year included just over £19 million of savings, of which we delivered just over 76%. So overall, about 14.5 million savings were achieved. But we know that we under-delivered in adult single programme, and the continuing pressure on external placements prevented £1.7 million of savings being made in children's and families. Those savings are being rolled forward, and they're being reported alongside, savings in this financial year. Our capital expenditure, the reprofiled capital budget last year was for £110 million, and our expenditure was just over 88 million, so an in-year slippage of 22.5 million. Again, we understand where that has occurred, and we will be making sure, as far as possible, those schemes are expected to be completed during this year. But the important thing is those schemes do remain on budget. Leader, very happy to make the sort of detailed recommendations within the report on pages 49, 50 and 51. Thank you.
Thank you, Lyndon, for that. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Lyndon on the report table today? No. In that case, as Lyndon said, there's a large number of recommendations. They're on page 49, 50 and 51. They're in four sets, 4 blocks, so I would take those all together. All those in favour, please show. That is duly carried. Thank you for that, and thank you, Lyndon. The next item on the agenda is the Children and Families Capital Programme update, which is the name of Patrick Molyneux, and I ask him to present it to Cabinet.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this is, as it says, an update to our Children and Families Capital Programme. The recommendations are on page 79, but a brief overview. The council has approved the Children and Families Capital Programme over a number of years. It's a revolving programme, and the latest update was the 12th February this year. This paper is a further update to the programme that going forward. Across the board, there is a nil change in the actual budget, or no real relevant change, but it is a rejigging of the priority of the projects, and that is mainly down to the needs and the projected needs in each area. Some projects have been moved back a while, but that has allowed us to bring other projects forward where that need is greater. Overall, this is part of our over £100 million investment in schools in the county, and it's an example of how education is important to us, and that we need to make sure that our teachers and the children have the best possible facilities for their education. The details are in the report, and most of the major adjustments are in the recommendations, which are 1 to 13. Happy to answer questions, but otherwise I think that's all we need to say at the moment.
Thank you, Patrick, for that. Anyone got any questions or comments for Patrick on that one? No. In that case, the recommendations, as Patrick highlighted, are on page 79, 18. There are a total of 13. I will take them on block. All those in favour, please show. That is duly carried. Thank you very much. Sorry, I put myself on mute just as I was finishing that sentence. Thank you very much for that. The next item on the Cabinet agenda is the procurement of highway services and works in connection with the delivery of the West Cheltenham's Transport Improvement Scheme, UK Side of Business Park, phases 3 and 4, and walking and cycling improvements, and making of any ancillary orders in relation thereto, which must be the longest title we've ever had for a Cabinet report brought here today. Certainly one without any indication of punctuation. So I'm going to invite Nigel Moore to present that to Cabinet. Nigel.
Mark, thank you so much, and I apologise for the lack of punctuation. We have some slides, so could I go beyond that introductory slide and just take us to the next slide, please? That's excellent. Thank you, Simon. Well, you'll see there the four phases of this scheme, and what I'm pleased to say is that phases 1 and 2, we have already begun work on those 2 phases. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank officers, because we're actually starting these 2 phases on schedule, and this is only because right from the outset, officers did not drop the ball during the initial COVID-19 weeks, and so we were able to move to this procurement, and I'm very, very pleased. And so why we're able to bring this next 2 phases, phases 3 and 4, which is actually ahead of schedule, is because just earlier this week, or earlier this month, on the 9th of June, the full business case was approved by the G1 LEP for these subsequent phases, and they have an additional funding of nearly 10 million to facilitate these 2 stages. Now, we want to move as quickly as possible to get to a point where we can go out to procure on a design and build basis, because we feel that is the most effective way of adhering to the very strict timescale that the LEP has set for us. And so this is why this paper is brought today, and why I'm looking for your support. The recommendations are 2 recommendations. First of all, to conduct the competitive procurement process, the supply of the services, and then secondly, to make any ancillary traffic regulation orders. So this is very good news in being able to take this forward. There's a lot in the report, but I think at the moment I'm concentrating on getting your support so we can go out to the competitive procurement process. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for that, Nigel. So we have in front of us the report and the slides which are on screen at the moment. Simon, can you take the slides down, please?
Just going down, yeah.
Participants. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this scheme proposal? Vernon.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yeah, thank you, Nigel. Yeah, I just wanted to put my thanks on record to emphasising again what you said earlier about how our contractors, our highways department, our planning, our designers have all been able, as two of these schemes are actually in front of themselves, have been able to deliver during this pandemic. And I just wanted to say that on record. And I would also emphasise to Cabinet the cycling and walking improvements. Cycle tracks are involved with these schemes, walking, various footway improvements as well are all included with these. And it's showing that Gloucestershire County Council have really been taking cycling and walking very seriously over a number of years. And our programme is ongoing and moving forward, even though it's a high topic at the moment about cycling and walking. And I just wanted to put on record, we take that very seriously, and we've been planning and we move forward continually with footway, cycling and walking schemes. And this is very welcome, and I fully support.
Thank you, Vernon. Any other members got any other questions or comments on this? No. Can I just echo the comments made by Nigel? It is firstly, want to put on record my thanks to officers to continuing to pursue this and the other schemes that we've got on our agenda today. These are vital schemes for the future growth of Gloucestershire and to our economy. And I think this is a scheme to be celebrated, if I'm being honest. I think this is a fantastic jewel in the crown opportunity for our county. It enables the cyber park development, which will be a huge growth opportunity for Gloucestershire, one that we must ensure that we secure, and one that I think is even recognised through Western Gateway as being a key development that's going to bring a lot of new jobs and prestige to our county. And I think to echo really what Vernon said as well, this just goes to show that we've always been focused on cycling and walking as well. This scheme really is part of an overall package of improvements that we're looking to deliver, and it's interesting to see that actually two of the items we have on our agenda today have got that cycling and walking focus, and they don't happen overnight. And I think criticism of members earlier saying that we've been haven't been moving fast enough. Well, I'd be saying that we've been moving very fast for a very long time. And some of these schemes that are going to come to the fore in the coming months are because of the huge amount of background work that's been going on by this authority for a considerable period of time. So I think this is a really good scheme, and I wholeheartedly endorse it. The recommendations are set out on page 96. So unless Nigel has anything else to add or any other members have any comments, I will move to the vote on the recommendations.
No, Mark. Thank you. No, Mark. Thank you very much for your comments.
So the recommendations, there's two in total. I'll take them en bloc. All those in favour, please show.
Carried.
That is carried. Thank you for that. Moving on to agenda item number 10, which is the M5 Junction 10 Improvement Scheme, Revenue Budget Approval and Homes England Contract Conditions Agreement. And I invite Councillor Nigel Moore to present that to Cabinet.
Thank you, Mark. I'll set out a little bit of background for Cabinet members. On the 12th of March, we're going to have a look. This is basically a location, just showing the position of the junction in relation to Cheltenham, and obviously it's all very familiar to you. On the 12th of March this year, the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government wrote to us confirming the successful housing infrastructure bid of 219.8 million for the M5 Junction 10 Improvement Scheme. Alongside this was the approval from the Department of Transport to proceed to the strategic outline business case stage for the M5 Junction 9 A46 large local major scheme. The progression of both schemes is welcomed by GCC, and in the immediate future, funding is required to support the progression of these schemes. Now, for Junction 10, Ministry has confirmed that there will be no drawdown from the 219.8 million capital funding until GCC has entered into the grant determination agreement. A very ambitious signing timetable has been proposed by our Homes England contract lead. The ambitious timetable is that GCC signs the GDA in July 2020 and draws down the first payment in August 2020. The report recommends that GCC enter into GWA together with any associated agreements and supporting documentation with Homes England in relation to the M5 Junction 10 improvement scheme. And to do this, Cabinet is being asked to forward fund that period up to contract signing and draw down, at which point the first claim will allow the return of money spent on the project to date. Now, for Junction 9, the Department of Transport has only assessed our pre-strategic outline business case. The DFT has a clear priority order for working with local authorities on their bids, and we are required to undertake further work on our business case development to keep to the contract large local major scheme deadline. So essentially, Leader, the recommendations are set out, quite a lot of recommendations in terms of underwriting at risk, the additional 2,150,000 million, and then also additional risk for 6,479,000 to the 2021 budget. So I want Cabinet to support delegating authority to the Executive Director, Economy, Environment and Infrastructure, in consultation with myself, to agree these terms and to sign the agreement with government and authorise the County Council to execute the GDA between GCC and Homes England by affixing the Council's seal thereto, and then authorise the execution of any supplementary documents or agreements necessary to facilitate the delivery of the M5 Junction 10 scheme. Mark, we're accused, aren't we, of not moving fast enough? But my goodness, to have got to this stage now is again an extraordinary tribute to the officers' sheer persistence in bringing this forward to Cabinet. I'm very proud of the position we've got to now. This is yet another major piece of infrastructure for the county, and these decisions are coming at this crucial time, Mark, in terms of demonstrating to the public that we do have a recovery plan for Gloucestershire. And I think, like most of us, I mean, I do at night, I worry. I've got two of my children furloughed. I think we all worry about the economic situation into the next year. But these construction projects are going to produce a large number of jobs, and what's going to be crucial, as you said earlier on, is to ensure that younger people are very much to the fore in our thinking in recruiting them into these really important projects. Thank you, Mark. I look forward to Cabinet support.
Thank you, Nigel, for that. Does any Cabinet members have any questions or comments on that one? Vernon.
Leader. Yeah, I just wanted to fully endorse what Nigel has just said and put on record. I'd also just add to it the environmental benefits. You know, again, we're accused very often of, are we being environmentally friendly? If you look at the impact this will have for cycling, walking, the previous one, Junction 9 reducing congestion, Junction 10 reducing congestion, encouraging traffic flows, encompasses again cycling and walking. And I just wanted to emphasise the environmental benefits this will have for the county, as well as the economic growth that we need for in the coming years. And I just think it is another fantastic scheme and to be really proud to be Gloucestershire at the moment, because I just think it's fantastic the amount of positive things that we've got going for us. And in this, and again, I would emphasise this isn't overnight. We've been working at this, and there is now showing it. It's at the forefront, environmentally, economically, growth. I think this is it's fantastic, and I fully endorse all the positive work that's going on. Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you, Bernard, for that, and Carol.
You like Carol?
Thank you, Simon. Leader, I just wanted to make the point about these developments. Not only is it about transport and infrastructure, with good transport and infrastructure, we can recruit into the NHS and the care system. Because people will really want to come here. You know, they can cycle from home to work. They can have a really good work-life balance. So these two projects in particular are really necessary, and I fully support them.
Thank you, Carol, for that. Any other members wanting to come in on this one? No. I just want to endorse what Nigel, Vernon and Carol has said. This is, I think, an example of the County Council once again stepping up to the plate, making sure that a project is delivered that benefits the residents of Gloucestershire and our future economic growth. I think it's really important to remember this is part of a package of infrastructure projects worth nearly £1 billion, the largest ever infrastructure investment into our county, secured by this Conservative administration and through the efforts of our MPs, the funding from a Conservative government. And I think it is really important now that we deliver these schemes for Gloucestershire, realise the potential that these schemes offer to our communities and to our businesses and to our future economic growth, and continue that great story of economic prosperity that Gloucestershire has, especially, as Nigel rightly points out, during what could be some challenging economic times. So we need to make sure that we put the investment in, as we are today, to deliver these projects for our county, deliver these projects for our businesses, to deliver these projects for the jobs that we want to see delivered for our communities, and continue to see Gloucestershire thrive. So I fully endorse these projects that have come forward today and the recommendations that are before us this morning. So Nigel, did you want to add anything before I go to the recommendations on page 108?
No, just to thank cabinet members for their support. It's very encouraging. It gives me the impetus, as you say, to drive forward these schemes. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, the recommendations are on page 108. There are 5 recommendations in total. All those in favour, please show.
That's carried.
That is duly carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 11. European Regional Development Fund capital funding for Gloucester Canal towpath, and I invite Councillor Vernon Smith to present that to Cabinet.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yes. Again, as you've said, it's asking Cabinet to approve, to apply for £433,736 to deliver a new towpath cycle route along the Gloucestershire Canal, Gloucester Canal, Sharpness Canal. This route offers access into the south of the city, linking areas including Hempstead, Podsmead, Quedgeley and Kingsway. The project aims to improve the quality of the towpath by completely resurfacing it, and to improve it in its aims will be to encourage people to enjoy health benefits by using the towpath, to travel into Gloucestershire, to move into Gloucester by reducing the usage of cars, in line with GCC's travel by cycle strategy, linking a county-wide network of dedicated cycle and walking routes. It is also part of a long-term aim, if I could just show. This is a travel by cycle strategy, and I'm just reminding Cabinet members, this scheme is the third phase of phases 1 and 2. £750,000 worth of work have already been completed on the canal towpath, and it is extensively used. And again, this project is adding on to that, which is effectively phase 3, another £430,000. I think it's a fantastic scheme. It endorses again Gloucestershire's commitment to cycling and walking and to improving the environment. Listed along this route as well on the towpath, we are also including biodiversity improvements to support the creation of new wildlife habitats and information boards telling the rich history of the area, which will also be put up along the canal towpath. I think it's a fantastic scheme, and I would ask all cabinet members to fully endorse this cycle project going forward. And I would finally add, leader, and just for cabinet, this is not part of the 150 million investment, it's extra.
Fantastic. Thank you, Vernon. Simon, if you could take the slides down, please.
Yeah.
And return to the meeting proper. So, okay. Anyone got any questions or comments? Dave.
Nigel.
And Nigel. Dave first.
You're live, Dave.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much. And obviously representing a division, as I do, south of the city, and it's already been mentioned, Kingsway, which is good to hear. I think it's quite obvious, and I think Mark would support me here, that the developments within Gloucester City and in Gloucestershire, they're going to grow and grow and grow in the Quedgeley, Kingsway and Huntsgrove area. I know through my responsibility as a city councillor that so many residents in that area are delighted to see that the link is going to continue right the way through from the city of Gloucester down through the south of the city and down into Stroud district. It's got to be the right thing. It will be well used. It ticks all the right boxes. And I know that there are many, many residents that are fully behind this, whether they're Quedgeley, Huntsgrove or Kingsway. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I have Nigel next.
Oh, thank you very much, Mark. I really just want to thank Vernon for his amazing commitment to getting this cycle strategy for Gloucestershire rolling out as he's doing. And I think we all, as cabinet members, recall some of the criticism he has at council meetings, and one just begins to wonder whether the critics actually bother to look at what we're doing, because just today is a good example of the scale of what we're doing. And so, Vernon, keep up your determination. We all support you.
Thank you, Nigel, for that. And can I just echo the comments of Dave? Obviously, we share neighbouring wards in Kingsway and Quedgeley, and both of us have been campaigning for a very long time to see the canal towpath improvements, because they're such a vital link for our communities who can walk and cycle into the centre of Gloucester. And I know particularly, I put this up on my Facebook page last week when the announcement came out. Huge amount of thanks from the community as well, has to be said. There's a lot of people in the community who've been calling for this for a very long time. The missing link of Quedgeley, as some of them have described it to me in the past. So this is something that residents are getting really, really excited about. And I've even had people come from further afield say this would be fantastic. It means I can commute into work in the morning on my bike. I'm really looking forward to using it. So it'd be great to be able to get this in as quickly as possible. But I think it's really be great as well to continue that commitment of seeing whether we can get more investment on further sections of the towpath and make it a real asset for Gloucester and for the county. So fully endorse it on that one, Vernon. Any other cabinet members got anything? Otherwise, Vernon, have you got anything to add before I go to the recommendations?
No, just thank you, cabinet and leader, for your comments.
Good. So the Cabinet recommendations are on page 119 and 122 in total. I'll take them on block. All those in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you for that. The final item on the agenda today is the recommendation to Council, which is the second review of the Statement of Community Involvement for Gloucestershire, and I invite Nigel Moore to present that to Cabinet.
Leader, thank you very much. Compared to what else we've discussed today, this is quite an esoteric subject. And in some ways it's quite difficult to try and simplify it. But essentially what it is a protocol for the County Council in the way it consults during its plan-making function. And there is this need now, a statutory need, to review the protocol every 5 years. And this is essentially what we're doing. So what I'll just briefly do, Mark, is just flag up some of the changes in this document compared with that we adopted a number of years ago. And the first of them, which wouldn't surprise you, is reference to legislative reforms, particularly around protecting people's personal data, GPDR. And also, very importantly, better reflect our potential role in plan making beyond minerals and waste matters. Recognition of the expansion of alternative and more effective consultation methods, including the greater use of social media, greater awareness of resource use and the need to support the decarbonisation agenda. For example, not putting hard copies of all our consultation documents in our libraries, which will result in a considerable saving of CO2. A new local guidance on consultations and notifications for large-scale and potentially impactful developments. It also has a number of temporary measures designed to avoid any conflict with Cabinet Officers' coronavirus guidance, staying alert and safe. So it really brings us up to date, and that's why it's important to take to Council. The recommendation is a very simple recommendation that the Cabinet recommends to County Council to adopt the second review statement of community involvement in Gloucestershire in accordance with Section 23 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004 as amended. Happy to take any questions on the subject, Leader.
Thank you, Nigel, for that. Does any Cabinet members have any questions or comments on this one?
Can't see any, Mark.
No. In that case, the recommendation is set out on page 126. As Nigel indicated, it's a decision of Council, so it's a recommendation to Council to adopt the attached plan. So all those in favour, please show.
That's carried.
That is duly carried. That is the last item on the agenda for today. Can I thank
that is going to Council next week as well.
Okay, thank you. That is the last item on our agenda today. Thank you all for involving yourself in our first virtual Cabinet meeting. I will echo the thanks I gave at the beginning of the meeting to all the officers for all the tremendous work that they've done throughout this. This has worked very well indeed, and I think we've had no particular IT glitches throughout the entire meeting. Our next meeting challenge will be full council, which is in a week's time, so slightly more participants, but hopefully that will go without a hitch as well. But for all those on the meeting and for all those watching on YouTube, thank you very much for joining us.